Good evening, everybody. Mike Geary here for the Geek Pridecast on this Sunday evening. With me, we have another guest, but as always, we have with us Mark Canty.
Evening out.
Jonjo Cosgrove.
Hello, everybody.
And Peter Ray Allison.
Good evening, everyone.
And our special guest tonight, we have Gareth Powell. Welcome, Gareth.
Hi.
So, Gareth, who are you? What do you do? Give us your thing.
Oh, I'm a bricklayer. I build walls and.
We were really scraping the barrel for guests. And, he was outside doing, and we thought, yeah, coming in,
Yeah, no. I write books about spaceships, and occasionally books about talking monkeys.
Okay.
And event for the monkeys.
Yeah. An eventful past couple of weeks as well with the latest announcement.
Yes. Some of the books about spaceships are being made into a TV series at the moment.
No way!
In the US.
And brilliant!
Very exciting time.
Who do we know what channel it is? Is it? Can you say?
We don't know which network it'll be yet, but the production company and the studio are working together on a pilot to. And hoping that one of the networks picks it up soon.
Oh, amazing! Oh, that's really exciting. I've read
the script and it's really good.
Not one of those deals where where you read the script and you go, "Oh shit, is it worth the money?"
So what is the score with that? Do you have any sort of input on the script itself or on the characters and things?
I've got some consultancy. The final decisions wouldn't be mine, but I've got a very good agent, and they've sort of negotiated some input on my behalf, and I'm credited as co-executive producer as well on the series. Yes. So cool. I will have a minimal input, I suspect, but I suspect the creative decisions will be made by the producer and the director.
What really kind of made my ears prick up was I saw some of the guys from The Expanse are kind of behind this as well. It's like one of the directors, I think, is involved.
Yeah, Breck Eisner, who directed, I think, 10 or so episodes of The Expanse.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
But some of the sort of backroom people, I think, are also involved in bringing it to the TV in the first place. So.
Oh, that's fantastic!
Wow, wow. Were you when you heard the news? What was your reaction? Was it like were you super amazed by it?
No, because I've kind of known for 18 months.
that must be a nightmare to keep to yourself.
Oh,
18
no
months.
way!
It has been. Well, we sold the option like 18 months ago to them, and so it's been a real slow drip of like, oh, well, there's a script writer on board. Oh, now there's a script, and now there's a director, and that's taken 18 months just to get those three pieces of. So when it's like the big announcement last week, everyone's going, "Oh, you must be so excited!" Okay, yeah, because I've been sitting on it for such a long time now. It's just like, oh, the relief I can tell people about.
Yeah, I suppose that's better.
Just imagine the first time someone says it to you, you go, "Yes, it's brilliant," and then after the 10th time, yeah.
There's still part of me that won't actually believe it's real till I see it on the screen. So
do you have an estimated time or date when you can expect it to be on there? Okay, it's just it's coming at some point.
It's coming. I don't know if they'll wait and film it after the plague has passed, or if I don't know what the plan is there at all. So
then you have to get someone interested in it, and then they have to get people to sign off and spend money on it. Then they have to make sure everyone that was involved can come back to do more, and it either goes quickly or slowly, I suppose, doesn't it?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and there'll be casting and all sorts and special effects and what have you. So it'll probably be a while.
Okay, well, I'm looking forward to it. I'll tell you that.
So am I.
I mean, this is like a universe and like a story you've written about in like a trilogy, and then suddenly it's like you see in your words made manifest on a screen. It must be very exciting to kind of anticipate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I've had some people have done like fan art of my characters and stuff, and that's been a very strange experience seeing like a character or a situation that has existed in my brain, and then suddenly someone's taken it and interpreted it, and it's like it's escaped into the world and taken on a life of its own. So I suspect it will be very, very strange for me to be watching like my story and my characters, but there will obviously have been changes to bring it to the TV format, so it's going to be mine and not mine at the same time.
Have they started with concept art and stuff like that, or is it
I've
too
not
early?
seen. I've not seen any yet. I've read the pilot script, as I said, and it's annoyingly it's sort of better than the book. But that's fine because I can still take credit for it.
So
That's
obviously,
not read by you.
Story by credit.
But at least
But
you, the books are finished. You've got the trilogy of Embers of War. Is there any more? It's not going to be like a George R.R. Martin where it's going to be finished off before the series finishes, sort of thing.
No, the trilogy is all written and published, so you can go out and buy it and read it today. Yeah.
Okay, so that's good. So it's not going to be they're going to be sort of making stuff up at the very end to sort of kind of fit in.
No, we're not going to have that situation, luckily. But it's if it goes really, really well, and they want more series, then I could be lured back to writing more books. So.
Ooh, right.
yeah, it's going
Yeah,
to.
Twisting your arm.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, no, given that the interest from the series will generate into the books. I mean, like, how did your trilogy end in such a way that you could, continue the stories of the Castle Crew, or like this, to expand different areas of that universe?
Yeah, I brought the characters' stories to a full arc over the trilogy, and they will develop. But there is space there for it to There is space for it to sort of develop, and I can bring them back and well, some of them, and do new things with them if the
cash is there.
Yeah.
If they throw loads of wads of money at you, and it's like, there you go, pure cash.
Inspired.
I mean, say cash, but like, is this like a universe and a story that you would want to come back to? I mean,
I'm very fond of the characters, and as I say, even before this TV deal was done, I had kind of been messing about with ideas for sequels. But we shall see. I mean, it's part of me would like to come back to the characters. Part of me thinks I gave them a good ending, and I don't want to come back and sort of spoil that. So we'll wait and see. It's the time would have to be right.
Do you think that if you do a follow-on after the TV series is kind of had a chance to have a run, that you would find that would you be growing from the books, or would you find yourself taking some inspiration with maybe from how the TV series treated the same property as well, as kind of...
Not having been in this situation, I don't know. I suspect if I did that, it would be a continuity nightmare, because they might, if I took things that had happened in the TV series that maybe hadn't actually happened that way in the books, it would could cause a problem.
Yeah, well, I mean, like Douglas Adams had great fun with continuity with his Hitchhiker series, which had the radio plays, the books, and so many different elements that he just kind of basically shrugged his shoulders and went, "Yes."
I think with when you see books that are being adapted into TV, there is always this fine line of how faithful you feel they're going within the original work, and then how much they change, how much they obviously, because some things do obviously translate better than others. On scripts, obviously, without obviously giving too much away, how much would you say roughly is still very faithful to your book, and then how much has been altered or been adapted for the TV pilot?
Well, they're two completely different mediums. So in the script, there are sort of scenes introducing the characters that aren't there in the book, because in the book you get what may be like a sentence or two of exposition needs an entire scene to kind of play it out. So the the spirit of the book is there. The scriptwriter Gary Graham loves the novels, really enthusiastic, loves the characters. So he's done a really, really good job on it. And the characters, I recognise them as the characters I made up. But he's kind of given me a masterclass in turning sort of tell into show. So.
Interesting.
We've got some comments on YouTube here. Generic Rich says, "Hey Gareth, congrats on the TV shenanigans." And then he says, "Ridley Scott had problems with the Alien franchise and continuity. Wouldn't worry about it."
We don't talk about the Alien prequels. We just don't.
Even the series that's happening either.
Yeah. No, I thought the continuity between the first and second movies was pretty good, and it's a shame there were none after that.
Yes.
I didn't mind Alien 3. I thought Alien 3 was all right. I think it's underrated. I quite like it. But anything after that.
I never forgave it for killing Newton Hicks off screen.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, Alien 3 was a good science fiction film. It just wasn't a good aliens film, which had such a pedigree behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, also, you've been collaborating with a certain Peter F. Hamilton as well.
Yes, we wrote a book together that's coming out in August from.
Oh, nice. Tour. Can you tell us anything about that? So
yeah, it will have a cover and pages.
Even better. That's what I'd like to hear.
No, it's called Light Chaser, and it is the story of a woman called Amelie who travels from star to star and world to world within human space, collecting memories. So each world she goes to, she drops off some necklaces that record your memories. And she picks up the last batch she left there, and her circuit takes 1,000 years. So these necklaces get passed down through the generations, and then she picks them up, and they have lots of memories on them that you can then she takes back to the core planet, so they can experience life in the periphery. But as she does this, she starts to come across the same voice, leaving messages for her throughout the centuries and throughout the different worlds, and there's a mystery there that's going to turn everything upside down.
How was writing with another author?
It was a lot of fun. It was like I sort of liken it to two musicians jamming. So it was, we both
Riffing
got in there, we both kind of did our thing, and our styles meshed really well, which was quite good.
How did you kind of decide who was going to write what? Because I mean, I can imagine and without overlapping with each other or dominating the book.
Well, we threw plot ideas back and forth over email for a while, and then I popped round to Peter's, and we sat in his study and we went through what scenes were going to be needed, and it was like, well, you write that one, I'll write that one, you write that one, I've got a good idea for that one, and so on. And then we went away and we wrote out our various things and then slotted them into the in the main document as we'd written them, but also read back to what the other, the other person, just in case there were things we needed to add in. So,
What software tool did you use for that? Because I mean, was it just Word or did you use something else?
Well, being very high tech, cutting edge sci-fi writers, we used Word.
If it works, don't knock it.
Yeah. I think we're both of a generation, I can't really speak for Peter, but I suspect that we started writing on typewriters when we were younger, and kind of Word suits that that approach to starting at the beginning and writing through to the end. I have tried Scrivener, but it feels too much like data entry a lot of the time.
I have trouble with that. I keep coming back to it. I've owned it for about 3 years, and it does feel like you spend too much time using the tool and in order to try and get to the bit you want to do, which is the writing sometimes.
Yeah. And I kind of hold the whole book in my head as I'm writing it, and right from the start to the end in order, so I can keep up it's kind of, I can't quite explain it, but it's like a rhythm, and I think I kind of go up and down, and it's like, where am I in this rhythm? Whereas if I try writing the scenes out of order, it's just a mess. And I don't know if it's kind of like an OCD thing or something, but I can't stand seeing all the chapters separated. I want them all in the same document where they belong. So yeah, I settled on Word, and Peter's the same. And we were just basically emailing a Word document back and forth between us.
Hasn't even quite got to the Google Documents shared document thing yet.
No, not we're just not hip and down with the kids enough for that sort of thing.
Do you have specific lines that you sort of certain riffs? You were talking about sort of like riffing. Do you have certain areas that you work on individually, or is it a free game for everything? Do you sort of kind of help each other out with different parts? Is there is there like a specific character that you would go, right, well, I'll deal with that character, you deal with this character?
No, I mean, as it's this woman traveling through space, it's basically almost a single character.
Oh, okay.
And there are other characters, but they kind of come and go, and so we both wrote scenes with that character in.
Did you have to have like a session where you go, right, well, this is how she is, this is how she will act to things, this is how she might what's the word? I can't think of the word. How she talks.
We kind of did that as we went along. I wrote he wrote a scene and I wrote a scene, and I did a lot of the initial kind of. It's really hard to talk about this without giving any spoilers away. But,
we'll not say anything.
Yeah,
Did you find that her voice sort of matured through the book as you were writing, which kind of allowed you to both stay in sync? Because obviously you said it's dealing with such a long period of time. So did it start one way? Maybe one of you started the first few chapters, and as you were kind of hopping over, leapfrogging each other, writing, that she kind of developed as your understanding between you developed of her?
Yeah, and I think also the way we structured it, the end of the story takes place at the beginning of the book. So we were writing sort of out of time as well. So it's
okay.
It was interesting, and I say our styles mixed very well. That Peter obviously writes very kind of mind blowing, stuff, but at great length, and I tend to be a little more kind of concise, so we kind of brought out the best in each other in that way.
Yeah, I was going to ask, given Peter Hamilton's approach to novels being doorstep levels, and given your own concise nature, how did that kind of those almost conflicting approaches intersect?
Well, this is a novella. I think it's about 30-something thousand words, which that's basically one
of his chapters.
Yeah, a chapter for him. So, it's.
I have this mental image of him on a motorbike, and you with big old boots hanging onto the back of the bike. No, slow up a bit.
Yeah, it was kind of like he's going, "Come on, Gareth," and I'm going, "No, hang on." So. Yeah, but it was fun, and we did things like I introduced a cat in one chapter, and he killed it off in another.
No.
So,
that's one thing I was going to ask. When you're editing someone else's work, when they're editing your work, is there some kind of almost possessiveness of how could you do that to that line? That was a perfectly good line.
No, remarkably, we were both fairly ego-free about it. It was, it was just like he would say, "Oh, this bit needs to change," and I'd go, "Yeah, you're right," and I'd say, "Oh, I think this would happen," and he'd go, "Oh, of course, yes." So we were, there was no kind of, there was no sort of locking antlers or puffing out chests or anything like that. It was very kind of, what's the word? Not workmanlike, but yeah, very, very practical and pragmatic, and just this is the story we're trying to tell, and we're just trying to make the best story we can. So
that's good.
Was this because you had a this is a really bad analogy, but it's the closest I can get to it. But basically, I'm in a band, and when we write something, if I've got an idea about it, and I've written effectively the song, I get very protective about things because it's being written by me. Whereas if I come up with a riff and somebody else comes up with a riff and we start pushing them together, I'm a lot easier about how things move along and how they go because I haven't any preconceptions of how I want it to go. Is it a similar sort of thing?
I guess so. I mean, I had a vague idea that I floated to him, and he took it and said, well, actually, this would work better this way. And it went back and forth like many times. And so by the time we settled on an actual idea, it was very much both of ours.
All right, okay. Yeah.
So, which was good. Is Peter trying to climb up the chimney?
he does this all the time because it's cold. Yeah. He goes and gets himself.
He comes out with white hair beard, and that's why we know he's really Santa. Don't tell the video on these sides going to be blocked.
Yeah, he's got himself a log burner in his study, so he goes off to throw that in while we're all freezing.
Can you hear me, Santa? It's me, Peter.
Oh, he's back now. Oh, it's back now.
Oh.
Incidentally, Gareth, I did just buy About Writing to have a read of that during the week, so I'm interested to see how that is.
Oh, good. Yeah, I hope you find it useful. That was a fun book to accidentally write. So.
Did it kind of come out of notes and stuff and say, actually, this might actually turn into a book if I'm not careful?
Yeah, that was a book I accidentally wrote and sold in the same evening.
Okay.
As I was backing up my old website, and I had a lot of blog posts and stuff on there, and a lot of articles, and I had some chunks taken out of interviews that I thought were quite useful, and bits of advice and so on. And I thought I'd stick these all in one Word document for use, and I stuck them all in there, and it came to about 40,000 words. So I tweeted, oh, I seem to have accidentally written a how to write book. And Luna Press tweeted back, we'll publish it. So
happy days.
Yeah, so that's how that happened.
I'm sure your bank manager was happy to hear that.
Yeah.
He's just done a Jesus. He's turned water into wine. We've got a question here from Generic Rich. What sort of sci-fi concepts fascinate you, and what might you want to explore in the future works?
Oh, good question. I tend to find that what fascinates me reveals itself over time as I look back at what I've written and think, I keep returning to that. Like talking spaceships and sort of lone, embittered space captains and things, and the idea of found families and atoning and kind of working out when you've lost everything, where do you go and who are you? And those kind of themes just seem to keep bubbling back up in my work. So it's not consciously, but when I sort of write and I think, oh, we're back here, are we? But yeah, I've always been endlessly fascinated with starships and sentient starships and kind of what it means to be human. And those kind of areas, I can't see myself drifting away from them quite dramatically. I'm not going to write
so fantasy epics coming our way then.
No kind of rom-coms or anything like that in the works. So
dragons with young teenage girls then.
No, but it's after the Embers trilogy, I've started work on 2 more novels for Titan Books, which are space operas but set in a whole new world. So a whole different universe from the Embers universe, which is a universe where in the near future humanity gets kicked off Earth by an alien race for the good of the Earth, not and so but luckily they're merciful, so they sort of excise. They think humans are like a cancer, so they excise the humans, but they give us a fleet of arcs to live in, and we're sent off into the galaxy with the strict instructions we're never allowed to mess up any more biospheres. So it's like, go off and do your thing, but leave the planets alone, bad human. So it's kind of like kind of like a Battlestar Galactica kind of culture kind of set up where the humanity is kind of trudging through the universe and these spaceships getting into trouble and stumbling across ancient alien artifacts and so on. But it's very much we've been wrapped over the knuckles and we're having to deal with the ramifications of kind of being told off and the parents stepping in and saying, "Look, you've made a mess."
Look what you've done! I can't believe what you did.
Yeah, it's almost an inverse of Battlestar Galactica, though, where it's not because an enemy has attacked the home planet and we've had to flee. It's more like, we are the enemy. We said, dude, you can't live here. You're destroying the planet. Leave. And it's like, so, yeah, we are.
It's like the landlord going, look at the state you've left this place in.
Well, you said it's kind of like a Battlestar Galactica. As long as it doesn't end like Battlestar Galactica, then thumbs up.
But it's 2 novels, but they're not sequels to each other. They're both standalones, but they're set in the same. So you can kind of, the idea being you can jump in at any point. I don't know how well that will work because obviously I don't want to repeat all the same background information in both of them, but.
Yeah, I was going to ask about like continuity. Like, is one going to deliberately occur after the other?
One is set like 300 years after the other, so
right.
It's different characters, but the same kind of situation.
Oh, interesting.
I suppose it works because with that many people and that sort of a length of time, you're just gonna. It's the whole thing of the people write the books about the interesting bits, and all the boring bits in between, kind of get skipped, and the people that are doing the boring stuff. Well, no one really remembers them, do they? Apart from the really detailed historians.
Well, basically, there's like 15 billion humans aboard 1,000 arcs, each the size of kind of Manhattan. So there's like endless sort of scope for stories.
Yeah.
And each of the arcs has its own personality and its own quirks and its own environment and its own kind of social setup and. So you can write anything from a kind of murder mystery to a full-on space opera. So it's.
Do you?
It sounds like.
Do you? With a lot of sci-fi, one of the end things now is using actual science to sort of with their sci-fi films and stuff. Are you the sort of person within your writing that would use actual science, or is it literally just what comes out of your mind and go with it?
I mostly just completely make it up as I go along. I find as long as it sounds plausible and it doesn't directly contradict any of the kind of more obvious laws of physics, then
why not?
You can kind of get away with it. So I'm not one. I don't see my job is to lecture. My job is to entertain. But at the same time, I don't want to say anything that's kind of quite egregiously wrong just to tell the story. So I try very hard to keep it within the realms of plausibility, but if I want a faster than light drive, I'm going to have a faster than light drive. So and I'll think up some outlandish way that it works, but you'll just have to cope with that. Whereas the rest of it, I would there will be no kind of I try not to have any, solve every problem by reversing the polarity on the warp core.
Well, it's just like James S.A. Corey when they were saying, like, the Epstein drives in the Expanse. All they will say about it is like, it works efficiently.
Yeah.
That's it.
It comes back to Arthur C. Clarke, though, doesn't it? The old any sufficiently advanced technology
it's like magic.
is indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah.
And so you can just say it works because
magic.
Someone made it work. But you don't have an advanced degree in mathematics, so I can't explain how.
Yeah, and in this new book, there's literally a point where one of the characters says, well, at least that's how it's explained to me. I've got no idea how it works. Because, the way I think of it is that if you were writing a novel set in the modern day and your character left the house and got into the car to drive somewhere, they wouldn't spend 2 pages explaining how the internal combustion engine worked.
Yeah, true.
They would just get into the car and go. So,
and if they get a text message, you don't explain how the network and the phone works and the software was written.
Exactly.
Maybe it was a super boring book.
Yeah. And that's why I don't want to get into, like, the old classic cliche of someone going, well, as you know, Professor, this drive works on me. And it's just, I'm not there to show off. I'm there just to kind of say, yeah, this just take it as read. This works, and we'll go with it, because
I lent a copy of Night's Dawn by Peter Hamilton to a friend where at a company he used to work at, and he loved it. He thought it was a great book, but he put it at the end, I know how to build a starship. Because it's literally I think the first quarter is like literally all about this ship, how it works, and everything, and it's really engrossing to read. But you're thinking afterwards, did I need that? No, but it was a great read.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't want to run the risk of doing a Moby Dick and having like endless chapters about like how whales work.
Well, it's like George R. R. Martin, when he's sort of in his books, he writes at great length about a meal and the description of the meal and what's going on, and then he'll get into a battle, and then it'll be just like, these people are dead, this person's dead, move on, and I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Why have you done that?
As you mentioned earlier, that how you got the book in your head and you're just kind of essentially transcribing it. Do you kind of plan it all out in advance, or do you kind of prefer to be a bit more a seat of the pants approach?
I kind of like the creative bit, so I'll have like a sketch map. So, not an ordnance survey map, but like a sketch map on the back of an envelope with, maybe turn left at the church and, beware of the dog at 43 and so on. So I know where it's going. But I'll leave plenty of space for the characters to take me off on unexpected directions, because that kind of making it up as you go along is, for me, that's the appeal of the creative urge, is like following it and seeing it and creating it as you go along. Whereas if I've tried writing the entire plot out and it just feels like I don't know what it feels like. All the spontaneity goes and it's just like work. So
some of the other writers we've talked to have said the same thing. You sort of you have a character and you just see where they take you, basically.
Well, there was that thing that we had a guy called Matthew on, who's a comics writer, and he was saying that he did a course with one of the editors from Marvel, and actually flew out to New York and stuff. And the guy said that there's two ways to write the book. One is to plan it all out and just sort of like flesh it out as you go along, and one is to kind of get a rough idea, let the characters get going, and see how scared you are by the end of it.
A lot of the time, if I'm stuck and I don't know where I'm going, I'll just let the characters talk to each other, and I'll write it out sort of almost like a radio script with just they said. So I'm kind of having the conversation in real time, and that will kind of lead me on to where the characters want to go next, because I'm kind of just letting them talk in a way. And react, and that kind of makes the decisions for me, and I just go back and write in all the he said, she said, and some description. But it's I'll very much let them talk and let their voices come, which was why the Embers of War series I found so much fun to write, because all my other books up till that point had been written in the third person, and this was the first books I'd written in the first person. So it was much more like kind of acting or something, that I'd just sit down and sort of channel this voice and this character. And that just helped it flow much, much more quickly and much more naturally for me. So.
Can you? I haven't read them, unfortunately, but can you give me a brief synopsis? What is the Embers of War about?
It's set in the sort of aftermath of a large war between two human factions, and it's very much kind of like, if you think of Star Wars, it's written like 3 years after Return of the Jedi, that there's been this huge war. Mm-hmm. The two sides have kind of gone back to being uneasy friends again, but there's disaffected ex-stormtroopers wandering around, and rebels who were on Endor going, God, man, you don't know what it was like. And it's kind of the human kind of civilization is just kind of stitching itself uneasily back together again, but there's still rivalry there. But there's also the main characters were all peripherally involved in the event that ended the war, which was this huge war crime where a sentient forest was destroyed in order to destroy the conference of generals that was going on at the heart of it. They just completely wiped out this billion-year-old biosphere of sentient trees, and everyone was so shocked the war ended. So everyone in the book is kind of trying to make amends for what they did, for what they experienced, for what they caused. And one of these characters is one of the heavy cruisers that was involved in bombing the planet, and her name is Trouble Dog. She's a starship whose intelligence is partially based on cloned human brain cells, but also there's some canine DNA in there in order to encourage pack loyalty. But because she's based on kind of human brain cells, she accidentally starts to grow a conscience, which is pretty much the last thing you want in a warship.
Well, yeah.
As well as, the capacity to disobey orders, which is also, a major flaw in a weapon of war. So she resigns, and she has her main weaponry stripped out, and she goes off to join an organization called the House of Reclamation, which is sort of a Red Cross in space. So if starships get into trouble or go missing, they will send a ship out to look for them, or if a planet's in trouble, they'll send a ship to try and help. So she joins that, and she gets paired with a captain who was on the opposite side of the war than she was, and various other sort of dysfunctional crew members, and they go off to do some rescues, but they discover a conspiracy along the way that will not only cause a new conflict, but maybe there's some really, really bad things lurking around in hyperspace. So
sold. I've just added them to my Audacity list.
Good book, so I will definitely be picking that up.
Yeah.
My Audible list, even.
You mentioned, like, in your synopsis just then of, like, of a billion-year-old forest being wiped out as a war crime, and then you also mentioned, like, in your forthcoming duology books that Earth has been kind of evicted from Earth because of environmental crimes. That seems to be kind of a recurring theme in your work. Is that intentional or just?
It wasn't intentional. No, I just I kind of, the sentient forest kind of is like it gave me an excuse to kind of write a kind of Vietnam novel in some ways. That some of the characters in there were from. Had some of the Marines who were on the ground when it was destroyed and stuff, and who fought among trees that whisper to you when you're trying to fight. So that was fun with the new books. That really just came that I was just like completely fucking super angry with politics and environmentalism and everything, and I just thought, right, I thought, what would I hope would happen? And I thought, well, some aliens will come and kick us off. And,
if we won't behave, then they'll make us.
Yeah, exactly. The adults will step in and slap us around the head and say, right, get on out of it. And so I thought, well, actually, that's a really good kind of premise for a book. So
in Embers of War, there's no cigar chomping hyper intelligent monkeys with machine guns then?
No.
Oh, I like that bit. I did thoroughly enjoy Akak Makak, I must admit, a few years back. I kind of came across it and mislaid a couple of weeks, just binging through.
Yeah, although without wanting to give any spoilers in the Akak Makak books, there are kind of suggestions of a multiverse, and so technically any of my books could take place in the same multiverses. So I might, because there are characters from my earlier novel, The Recollection, turn up in the Macaque books. Because technically I could just have a monkey in the back, like run past in the background in any of mine.
Amazing.
That would be hilarious.
Let's do it.
Write a TV series about that one, see if you can get away with it.
Oh,
I'll see what the.
It has to be in your contract.
There's.
We've got some more questions here. We've got Pale Lady says, will you ever write more about the reef?
The Reef.
Yeah.
I made it. The Reef is something that started life in a handful of short stories I wrote way back when, which is basically runaway Earth, no, not Earth, NASA's solar system communication system gets so complicated it eats the internet and becomes self-aware. And it grows sort of these eruptions of nanotechnology at each of its transmitters that become what's known as reefs, and they contain all kinds of weirdness and can do weird things to people who get too near to them and so forth. And I wrote a few stories set in that world where things was, and then I wrote a novella that I self-published last year called Downdraft, which is set in that world as well and follows the sort of Shakespearean decline of somebody who tries to use that technology for their own good, but is also deathly afraid of it. So yeah, maybe I'll return to that setting. There's plenty of sort of story scope in there, but as soon as I if I come up with an idea or something, I never say never to these things.
What your writing process? I think I've asked this to most of the writers we've had on. Do you get to a point? Do you get writer's block? Some of them have said no, and it's my job. I can just power through. What about yourself?
I always used to say no, but then 2020.
Right. Okay.
This last year has been an absolute pig for trying to write because lockdowns and Brexits and Trumps and
he's gone now. He got yeeted. He's gone.
I know, but we've still got post-Trump disorder.
The legacy of Trump.
Aftershocks, echoes, and boxes in strange corners full of things we don't want to mention.
But also, I'm used to writing while my kids are at school, and they haven't been at school for most of the year. They've been, my desk here is in the living room, so it's right at the heart of the house. So,
right, okay.
I'm used to writing in silence, and I'm writing with two teenagers stomping about the place, and it's not quite the same. So.
Yes, I don't have kids, but my neighbours make sure I don't have silence during the day.
I was going to say, how has the past year been for you? And it sounds not good.
It's there's all the all the general stuff we're all going through, which is we're going through the worst turbulence and loss of life since the Second World War. I think really this is I don't think a lot of us have actually taken the time to realize what a traumatic period we're going through, and when we look back in there'll be documentary in 10 years time of the COVID, and we'll all be going, bloody hell, we lived through that. So no wonder I was tired all the time and drinking wine in my pajamas at 2 a.m. So it's there's been all that. There's been some stuff in my personal life that's been quite difficult. So it's generally been a shit year, and hopefully I will get my writing mojo back and actually get some time to get some serious work done, because I've got my editor at Titan is waiting for a whole massive edit on the first of the 2 new books, and then I've got to write the second one. So it's
there's a light at the end of the tunnel. The vaccines are getting out there, and schools should be reopening from mid-March. Fingers crossed. So we're getting there, but it's been a bit of a slog for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I've just found it that when I'm stressed and thinking about other things, I find it very difficult to kind of get into a creative mindset. So,
what's your stress relief? What do you have? Like for us, we play Dungeons and Dragons. I'm into all kinds of different games, so I keep myself busy. Okay, wine.
No, I've started going out for walks. It's my sedentary lifestyle under lockdown became even more sedentary, so I've started sort of going out for I do a lap of the village or something, and that'll be 4,000 or 5,000 steps, so that'll make me feel better, and it's that kind of lifts my mood if I'm feeling stressed, just to get out and walk and kind of get the air going and the blood pumping. So.
Yeah.
Just thinking about, because obviously you do write a lot of sci-fi stuff. When you've got downtime and you're watching TV, is sci-fi your first go-to, or do you have a completely different genre you like to get yourself lost in?
Sorry, downtime. I don't
Have to watch television.
Did I not mention the teenagers?
The teenagers are out the picture. Or what do you watch with the teenagers?
It used to be okay when they were much younger and they'd go to bed like 7, 8 o'clock at night, and I would write all evening. But now they don't settle down till 12, 1 o'clock. They want to watch what they want to watch. So I tend to end up watching kind of things I would never dream of watching, like Grey's Anatomy and so forth. So, I very rarely get control of the TV remote. And I did this evening, and I totally squandered it by watching the second Wonder Woman film. So
yeah, apparently it's not meant
I've
to be the best.
Not seen it yet.
It's not had good
What's your opinion?
I've seen it, so you don't need to.
All right, okay, not bad then.
Have you been watching The Expanse at all?
No, I haven't. I keep meaning to watch The Expanse. I've watched the first episode, but I've been avidly reading the books as they came out.
Yeah. The books and the TV series, they start the same but diverge and like combine characters and everything, but they are both telling the same story in different ways, but both so good.
Yeah,
I'm on the third of the way through the 5th season, and it's just fantastic.
Yeah. I watched the newest one the other day, and it's one of these things. It's one of these shows that it's very rare you get a TV show that you're so addicted to, and then when you see, there's only one left of the season, you're like, how? I didn't even think it'd been that many. I don't think I'd seen that much.
Yeah, I as I say, I've watched the first episode twice now, and it's almost kind of note for note the same as the first book, the opening of the first book. So I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I kind of know this story, and so I need to stick with it a bit more and get into sort of build up a momentum with it, because everything I've seen looks amazing. The effects look amazing. The cast look great. The cast are kind of as I imagine them. My faculty for names has vanished during this pandemic. My brain is just
I'm horrible with names.
Is it Catherine Avalos? I can't remember. That, yes, bless you. Yeah, the actress who plays her is just amazing. I just think she's fantastic.
She nails it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it, but I think what I'm going to do is binge watch it when I've read the 9th and final book.
Right.
Yeah,
So just have them in parallel.
I've got I keep on getting told about it, and it's one of those things where I'm just like, do I read the books or do I watch the series? And I got so sort of into that moment where it's just like, I've not done either, so I'm just like, yeah, what do I do and stuff? And I've got a massive backlog.
Yeah, the books and the series are quite different. They tell the same story, but in very different ways. The TV series, takes about first 3 episodes is just purely set up, exposition, plot building, establishing all the characters, and then the 4th episode happens, and it literally goes from calm, slowly building plot, increasing tension, to holy shit, we're in the middle of an absolute space battle. And it's like, from a engineering and science perspective, it is probably the most realistic space battle I've ever seen on a screen.
The space combat is awesome. I've watched the first 2 or 3 series. I've read the first 3 books, but just watching the space battles is much more visceral and immediate. It doesn't feel, even Battlestar Galactica did quite well, but it doesn't feel floaty or sci-fi. It feels very immediate, like a war film, because things actually happen. But there's no stupid whining or anything like that. It's like dull thuds, but people are being eviscerated. Yeah,
it's a grounded element to it, which is
not
very
overplayed.
rare.
Yeah.
In very many sci-fi shows, they do seem to go very over the top, very glitzy, very shiny. But this is very, like I say, it feels very real. When it's very rare to have a show like that, and that's why I think The Expanse. I only started watching it about a year ago, and I just flew through seasons 1, 2, 3, and 4 like nothing. And it's just cannot wait to see what comes up next.
This is why I'm very pleased to have Breck Eisner on board as director for the Embers of War series, because the whole aesthetic in that book is everything is scuffed and grimy and secondhand, and it's been through 10 rounds of combat and it looks it. So to have that kind of, the fact he knows his space onions, having worked on The Expanse like
Trust.
that, is really, really good.
Yeah, when I read that that he was on it, I literally just whooped in like, "Oh, great! You got the right director for the job."
Oh dear. But you say obviously you're reading the books. Which other authors do you read that you know, not necessarily sci-fi, but what, you know, the authors that you relax by reading because they give you a good enjoyment?
I keep coming back to Ian M. Banks all the time.
Yeah,
I've read some of his books sort of half a dozen times. I've read pretty much everything Peter Hamilton's written, which was why it was so amazing to actually work with him.
I can imagine.
It was, you know, when I first started out writing, I think I picked up the Reality Dysfunction before I'd even had a story published anywhere, and you know, to have written to the point where I'm actually like sat in his study with him writing a book together was just like I'd pinch myself at one point. But yeah, so those are the characters I you know I write. I love Aliette de Bodard's Zaya series, the novellas and so on. Those are fantastic. I love the. I've returned to the Ancillary Justice trilogy 2 or 3 times.
I couldn't get into the first one of that. A friend bought it for me. I need to go back to it, I think. It's
I
one of those bad
bounced
times.
off it the first time I tried to read it.
Yeah.
And I found it very difficult to wrap my head around the kind of the way the ship was describing being in many places at once. But then I persisted and went back to it again because we co-won the BSFA award that year, the Ancillary Justice and Akak Makak. So I thought, oh shit, I better read it again. So I went back to it and persisted and actually really loved the entire trilogy. It's one of the best trilogies of recent times. I think it should be a classic. But yeah, there's just so many. There's so much good sci-fi around at the moment. You know, Martha Wells's Murderbot Diaries. I'm working my way through those at the moment, and they are great. They're so much fun.
Have you read any of Pierce Brown's The Red Rising trilogy at all?
No, I have not yet.
It is really good. My boss got me onto it, and I wasn't really that bothered. When I first started, I was like, it starts off in a kind of battle royale type, sort of Hunger Games type thing, but the way he writes it, it just progresses, and you can see him evolving with every book to the point where it gets onto these full scale battle on planets, and you know, he's describing all the different mechs and the different the fighters and the spaceships and stuff, and it's so good. The characters are so well written as well. It's a really good, really, really good trilogy. Well, there's 5 books at the minute because it's on its second trilogy, but so good, so good. And the guy writes a book a year even, sorry. It's just, he's like, yeah, to be honest, yours were written a year apart, weren't you? Your trilogy was written 18, 19 and 20, wasn't it?
Well, that was when it was published, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, I think I wrote Embers 2016 to 2017. And then it went around, then it was edited by a few people and then kind of picked up by Titan. And then I, you know, at that point I was writing the second one.
Yeah.
And I think I was just about to start the third one when Embers came out in 2018.
Right. And
it came out to sort of really good reviews, and I suddenly got the fear. Because everyone was going, oh, this is so brilliant, this is so brilliant. And I was like, the second one I'd just written really quickly, and it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it and put a load into it because there was no expectation because the first one hadn't come out. But the third one, everyone's going, and I was like, oh shit, people really like this one. I'm gonna have to stick the landing with the third one. I did feel some pressure with the third one to actually, you know, get it right and to live up to what had gone before. But
where do you stand on the classics like Dune, for example? Obviously, with the film coming out at some point in the near future. Did you ever get into those?
I read Dune when I was at school, so probably about 15, 16. And I remember I quite enjoyed it, but I don't remember much about it. Apart from, I remember the David Lynch film, which,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you can't forget something like that. So yeah, I was never. I remember I read Heinlein when I was 12. Kind of read Have Space Suit Will Travel and books like that, which I was
Men's
very.
Harsh Mistress. Never read that one.
Yeah, I read that one. I kind of my teenage years, I was very into Larry Niven, his early stuff, like
Oh.
Ringworld and
Footfall. Have you ever read Footfall?
Yes.
I love that to bits, but lots of people go, "What?"
Yeah, I loved all his books, and then I kind of started sort of went to university, and our politics diverged quite radically, and that I started to see like things in Footfall, and was it Lucifer's Hammer was just like, okay, this is where we part ways, and I kind of which is a shame, but and I'm reading back some of the stuff and I thought about giving Ringworld to my daughter, and then went back and read it and thought, no, I ain't doing that, because it's a the heart of the book, the idea and the adventure and everything is great and all of that, but the kind of the depiction of women in it is just atrocious, and it's not something that occurred to me when I was a teenager reading it, but now in these slightly maybe more enlightened times, it's just like, okay, so there's a 200-year-old man with a 20-year-old girl locked up in a spaceship, and and then they lose her because she runs off with a muscly man, and then they meet a 1,000-year-old whore, and she helps them escape, and it's just like, Larry. Yeah, so yeah, it's like this. It's like the Stainless Steel Rat books as well. They've
they've not aged well. Yeah, I read them. I read them as a teenager, loved them. Now it's just no.
Yeah, I absolutely adored them, but then I went back to them to write a thing for SFX about their book club about the first one, and reread a couple, because I used to read like 2 of them in a day because they're really thin.
Yeah.
But and it was just like some of them it verges on like Benny Hill, and it's so
cringy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not like a woke campaigner or anything, but at the same time, some basic bloody respect for people isn't too much to ask. And
yeah.
I've watched Airwolf. I loved Airwolf as a kid, and then I rewatched it a few years ago, and it was just painful. Like, oh no, I can't physically watch this. We're just ruining my childhood, because, like as a kid, you call a helicopter with guns that pops out. What's cooler than that? Now it's just like, no.
Yeah, you're not really thinking much into things when you're a kid, are you? You're just sort of, you're not thinking anything deeper than big guns coming out of a helicopter.
Helicopter with turbo boost. What more do you want? But yeah, it's
oh man.
What's the so? It was books that sort of got you into sci-fi. Was it film? A bit of both.
It was my earliest memories are like in the early 70s, so sort of 73, 74, watching the original Star Trek on old black and white TV.
Wow.
So I was about 4, 5 years old, maybe, probably younger. And incidentally, I was gutted when we got colour TV, and I realised that Captain Kirk's shirt was yellow and not blue. Because on black and white, they all looked the same colour, so I assumed they were all blue. And I had a pair of pyjamas that kind of looked a bit Star Trekky, because they had little insignia that were blue. And then I was totally gutted that I was a science officer and not a captain. But so yeah, I was kind of into that, and I had a really old book called "You Will Go to the Moon."
Oh, okay.
Which I think was published in the 60s. I did find it on Google a few years ago. And it's basically, when you grow up, this is the space rocket you will take to orbit. This is the ship you will use to cruise.
I've heard of this book.
Yeah, there's a ping pong table and
by Ira M. Freeman and May Freeman. It's got a kid with a red shirt looking at the moon.
Yeah. But that was fantastic. The pictures are amazing. They're just absolutely fantastic paintings of kind of proper Von Braun golden age kind of. This is
Wow.
But it was written like, you will go to the moon. There was no messing about. It's like, not, one day you might go. No, it's, you will go to the moon. I was like, yeah, I'm up.
And then is it like it shows like how everyday life would be on the moon as well? Yeah, I do remember this. It's
how you can. It was like a father and a son, and like how far they can jump. And the spacesuits with the kind of ridges on the arms. And legs.
Danger, Will Robinson, danger.
I just remember that being some book in my school library. I remember looking at it and I was like, this is some crazy stuff. This is some proper insane stuff. But then obviously thinking about it, back in the 60s, back before
optimism,
travel, back before space travel was an actual thing, that was it. People were like, well, hang on, this is what we'd do. But it's like, well, hang on, but can you do it? It's like, who cares? We're never going to go to the moon. And then
you can on a soundstage in Hollywood.
The soundstage in Hollywood never happened.
No,
Hollywood is a conspiracy theory. It doesn't exist. All Hollywood films are actually shot on the moon.
No, because I'm just started watching For All Mankind on Apple TV, which is quite good because that's an alternate history one. Because the second series is coming up in next week, I think. But that's like a what if the Russians got to the moon first? So Apollo and stuff doesn't die out. It gets pushed further and harder. And that's quite interesting because, as you were saying, you look back and it embodies that 50s, 60s sort of politics, which occasionally makes you go a little tiny bit in the way they treat other people. But it's also kind of cool seeing this idea of them pushing things harder and faster instead of just going, screw it, we did it, we can give up now.
What are your views on the new Star Trek? Well, actually, there's two things. There's Below Decks, which is hilarious, and then there's obviously Discovery
and Picard. Excuse me, thank you very much.
I'm not saying Picard yet. Yeah.
Well, that's your problem.
I enjoyed Picard basically because I would watch Patrick Stewart read out his shopping list for an hour. He's just fantastic. Some of it was a bit insane and like the stuff with the Borg but it was worth the price of admission to, spoiler alert, see a Borg cube crash into the sea. So, that was fun. But at the end of the day, I don't feel any need to go back and rewatch it. But it was just like a nice kind of, because I watched TNG when it came out and was quite enjoyed it. So it was kind of a nostalgia thing there. I haven't seen Below Decks, but it seems to be covering a lot of ground that maybe the Orville has already covered.
It's actually I think it's better. I like the Orville as well.
Yeah.
It's like Final Space meets The Next Generation. I thought it's got that Final Space sort of edge to it, but it's got that sort of episodic Next Generation sort of feel to it, I think.
And that's annoying me now because I really want to see the new series of Final Space, but there ain't a release date for it yet.
No,
but Discovery, I've really been enjoying. The first season, I got very impatient with all the Klingon bits.
Yeah,
the Klingon stuff was just annoying, and the subtitles, and they were going, and they just looked stupid. But apart from that, it was I just thought it was batshit insane. All the stuff with the mirror universe and Giorgio is just I just want to see a series about her. I mean, screw the rest of them.
The Empress of Mankind.
Well, Section 31's come.
But the second season was just even more insane. But I loved Pike as a character. It was great to see him.
Yeah.
Well, they've got a spin-off
character from a rejected pilot like 60 years ago helms his own series, and that was just fantastic. And I like the fact each series they have a different captain. And obviously at the end of this series that's just gone, I won't spoil it, but there is obviously setting up
the guard.
Yeah, so that it kind of gives a new character to it each time. That there's a new captain for each series. I like the way they kind of relocated from before the original series to 900 years later. It's just like, yeah, whatever, let's go. None of them went, actually, do you mind if I stay? So that's kind of fun. And yeah, it's just, as I say, it's not a series I would rewatch, but it's a series I watch out, avidly as each episode comes out each week, just to see how crazy it's going to be.
I think I look quite a lot with Discovery going that far ahead in the future, because then they're kind of writing themselves out of a corner, because obviously doing that gap between where they started and leading to the beginning of what was the original series, that's not a great time frame, especially if something works well, a TV company will want it to go for years and years, and they go right, so how do we do this? Should we go 900 years in the future? Yeah, okay, let's do that.
But they've written themselves into the same gap, though, haven't they? Because they're spinning off Pike and Number One and Spock into their own. But that has the advantage that we've got so many things for them to work around, but we've also got a new spin on it.
But then again, you see, we've already had technically a sequel/reboot with the 2009 Star Trek film. Why not just do it again, really? Because, Picard, which is kind of following it on from obviously Next Generation, so it's keeping to that continuity. But then, what's to say stop us from going, right, okay, well, actually we'll have our own continuity for this section of Star Trek.
Other than the entire Earth popping out of orbit because of all the fanboys exploding.
I kind of was getting the impression maybe Discovery was kind of moving towards Picard, in that these weird AI aliens from the future might be something they might run up against especially with the downloaded sphere data on the ship. I thought, I was kind of getting the kind of the vibes. Maybe the two series were going to converge.
It could happen.
They've still got that issue with one of the short treks that they need to deal with as well, don't they?
Yeah. But oh, sorry, I was just going to say, but I was really disappointed when I found out that Discovery was going to be a prequel, and then the fact they've changed it to a sequel is just like, that's good. I like that. It's just like, because for a long time, like TNG and Voyager, and then we never got any further, so it was always looking back. So
that's something you might like about Lower Decks, is it's sitting in the space between Nemesis and Picard, and if you get to the end of the first season, without doing any spoilers, it does tie itself in a bit better for the second series, for it to be digging out stuff, as well as having some very good fourth wall callbacks in places.
I did like the way in Discovery they sneakily got the reboot films into continuity.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was unexplained. They coexist. That was really good. So,
yeah. Did you get a little tear in your eyes with the scene with the scene with Navari, or whatever it's called, Navar and her learning about Spock?
Yeah, that was
a nice little callback, I thought.
Yeah. So, Leonard.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of struggled with Discovery the first season until about 7 or 8 episodes in, when Stamets became basically a space Timothy Leary, a space hippie. At that point, I thought, fuck it, yeah, let's go with it. And mostly because I really begrudged Michelle Yeoh as Jonjo being punched out with a single strike, because this actress, Michelle Yeoh, is the only person to have out Jackie Chan, and she just felt so incredibly underused. Now she came back later on, and she was kicking ass. At that point, you go, okay, you're forgiven. I can watch a bit more now.
I think it was in the first season where it was like, yeah, as you say, Stamets was like, I have engineered a giant tardigrade in order that I can now mentally pilot us through a mushroom network that extends everywhere in space. And I was like, these guys weren't sober when they were writing this, were they?
Well, Stamets is basically Timothy Leary on acid.
Yeah. There was a party in Hollywood, and they were passing around the magic mushrooms, saying, "Wouldn't it be great if these could like take you anywhere?" What are you doing Monday? I'm writing a new Star Trek.
I was at a talk at Burning Man. So no, but basically, it's one talk where they were saying that there was this thing called the mushroom intelligence, which had travelled to Earth on a meteorite, and it was trying to communicate with us. At that point, I was going, yes. Now step away from the crazy man slowly.
Have you not heard the theory that the reason we our sapien ancestors evolved into humans was because they ate magic mushrooms?
Yes.
So you could basically they got fucking high and went, dude, what if I could talk? Holy shit, I'm talking, and then just sort of became humans. That's just like, wow, that's kind of crazy.
Woke up after a really good trip to find out they'd made the first wheel. Well, shit, that seemed like a really good idea at the time.
Yeah, maybe if we shave the corners off. Yeah, I've heard the same theory, but attached to hemp.
All right, okay.
With much more widespread, that they would kind of burn it in their campfires and get kind of mellowed out and kind of sit there and look at the stars and go, I need to describe what I'm thinking to the people around me. So, yeah.
See, I don't know about weed and stuff because you'd be sitting there like you just sort of getting the munchies, it'd be like dried meat. You won't be doing very much. There'd be no sort of kind of evolving things because you'd be thinking about stuff a bit too much.
That's where the mushrooms came in.
Yeah, that's where the mushrooms.
I'm
super psyched right now.
I don't care, I've got the munchies.
I still find it mind-blowing that mushrooms are more closely related to us than they are to plants.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy shit. No wonder I don't like eating mushrooms.
Cannibalism.
BT.
On a bit of a side note, it's not really sci-fi, but I've been watching Snowpiercer on Netflix, and actually, I appreciate it. It used to have a film, and it's not very good with Chris Evans in it. I've not watched that, and it's a graphic novel. But the series, which was originally on, can't remember the name of the network, but it's now on Netflix, and they've just had the first episode of the second series with Sean Bean in it, so it's a good for me, and it's awesome.
Survived the whole episode.
Yeah, he did survive the whole episode, but it's just like it's got but it's got a very Battlestar Galactica feel to it. Where they're in these confined spaces. There's this sort of kind of geopolitics sort of angle going on with different parts of the different parts of the train that they're on, and yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Definitely worth a watch.
I think the thing with Snowpiercer was that when I read the graphic novel years ago, I always pictured that it should be very serialized. When they done the film, don't be wrong, the film was okay, but it just didn't have that same feeling. Whereas a TV show, you get time to learn and explore. You get to learn about the different characters, different carriages, the classes, and I think that's why Snowpiercer, straight away, the first season, I thought I watched pretty much from beginning to end. I think in the same day, I just couldn't stop, and I've got to start watching season 2. But
there's only one episode at the minute. The second episode's tomorrow, but it's just it is really good, and like I said, it had that sort of Battlestar Galactica feel to it, where it's a bit more than just space combat, and it's more than just them being on a train. There's a lot more going on, and it's I was pleasantly surprised with it. Really enjoyed it.
I was going to also talk about TV series that are coming on at the moment that are going on. WandaVision, obviously, Marvel's first proper TV series on Disney Plus, and episode 4. Not saying anything about it, but episode 4 that just really did mess my mind up. That was awesome. That was so good. It was such a good episode, and just the last, like one of the last shots when you just go, "Oh my god, I was not expecting that kind of thing." It's like,
I've not seen it yet. All I know about it is there's a callback to Ant-Man when he wants to learn the card trick, and
yes.
And he actually obviously got taught the card trick, which I've seen when I was on TikTok. But
there's a couple of sort of callbacks.
Yeah,
Definitely callbacks to Ant-Man, callbacks to
Thor,
Endgame. Yeah,
Thor,
all
yeah.
well.
What are your views on Marvel and DC and films like that, Gareth? What are your views on superhero films?
I've really enjoyed the Marvel ones. I went to see Iron Man in the cinema and just thought, holy shit, this is the best superhero movie I have ever seen.
Yep.
And then I think I kind of, for various reasons, missed out the rest. And then the next one I saw was the first Avengers movie. And it was just, I sat there in the cinema just with a grin all over my face for the entire thing, because it was exactly what I kind of felt reading Avengers comics when I was like 9 years old. It was colorful, it was bright, there were these characters that, and it was everything I wanted. Whereas I was jaded from like all the gritty, rainy Batman films, and it was just like, but suddenly it was what I remembered of comics. It was colorful. There was throwbacks to other films and crossovers, and that's what I remember from reading the comics. But it was always have like see Hulk number 517 Stan in the bottom of a panel for references, and you had to go and look up that.
Stan the man.
Yeah, and it just felt like the Marvel comics I remembered as a kid, that they were all interconnected and it was a team up, and it was brilliant. And then the kids got slightly older and I started taking them to see them, so it became like a family thing. And they fell in love with Spider-Man from Civil War, when he just was like a bit like Civil War. They argued all the way home about which of them he was going to marry, and this is how I'm testing if any of them are watching this live, because I'm going to get an indignant shout from upstairs.
Dad!
Oh, God, that's just so embarrassing.
You have obviously seen Avengers Endgame, then, haven't you?
Yeah.
That's all right.
That kind of ruined films for me after that. It's just.
Yeah, it was literally. It's the only film I have gone to see on my own. I have never gone to see a film on my own. It's always been with a group of people, and I just went, nobody wants to go with me. I'm seeing this film. I went on my own, and I was just like, man, absolutely.
Friends, if there's no one who wanted to go and see Avengers with you.
No, it was just I can't remember what was going on, but basically everybody, like all my friends, are sort of married, have kids, things like this. So there was no, I want to see this today. There was like, sorry man, can't do it. So it's like, right, well, I'm just going on my own then, aren't I? And
screw you guys, I'll go and have fun with that.
Yeah. But I was just,
I came out of that thinking, no film is ever going to be that epic ever again.
Marvel in general just have knocked it out of the park. There's, it's.
If you think about what they've achieved in the space of 10 years, they released a 17-film epic.
22 film.
Sorry, 22. No other license or property has ever achieved that.
Yeah.
Other than probably James Bond, but even then, that is not interconnected. And that's not interconnected either. That's just a series of one-off adventures.
Especially when you consider they started off with, there's no way in hell it's going to work. They've got to wash up for a lead actor. That's like the best superhero film ever. Holy crap! What do we do with our lives after the last 10 years?
The only other film universe I'd say that's probably gone on quite a long time has kept connected is Kevin Smith's Viewer Skew.
Yeah, his last film wasn't the best though.
Which one was that one?
Jay and Silent Bob reboot was slightly. I wanted to love it, but I just couldn't. It was just.
Where's Josh when we need him?
I love Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, like the breaking of the fourth wall and the film parodies, the Goodwill Hunting 2 hunting season kind of
applesauce bitch.
But then the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, it was, I hate to say it, but it was one of the most self-indulgent films I've ever watched in my life.
He made no secret that was self-indulgent. He even said, he literally started a phone call going, "Hi, do you want to be in my film? I had a heart attack. You can't say no." It's like, okay, then I'll be there.
It was just that Silent Bob was too front and center, and it's just like, he's always just been a periphery character who sort of pops in now and again. He was just too, I don't know, even his facial expressions were just like all over the place all the time, and it was just like, want my silent Bob to be silent and kind of in the background, and it was just sort of a bit odd. And like I said, it was just cameo after cameo after cameo, and it was just so gratuitous. And I was just like, I want to love this because I love Kevin Smith, but I'm just not. It, you know, I'm watching it, but it's not really doing much for me.
It felt like a school reunion where they kind of redo the school play many years later, and everyone looks older and uncomfortable.
Yeah, his daughter's a really good actress. I think she
yes,
yeah.
She was the best thing in the film, I think.
Yeah.
And I think if she can kind of cut herself free from her dad, she would probably have a good career going.
We're lucky good Josh isn't here.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I've really enjoyed all Kevin Smith's films. I've got most of them on DVD. I've really enjoyed them, but it's kind of, you know, I feel really bad for Jason Mewes because in Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, he carried that film. He was amazing comic talent.
Yeah,
and obviously with his personal problems, he's kind of lost that kind of comic timing and that edge. And
I always thought that Jason Mewes was going to be the kind of actor who was going to, I don't know, I always thought he'd be like the breakout actor. At some point, he'll be cast in like some bigger productions. He was going to be like the guy who you go to for certain things. He'd be the quirky character who'd be the guy that you remember when you come out of the cinema. But
he's like a heroin addict, wasn't he? He was like, you know,
he was apparently doing something like, you know, like $1,000 of drugs a day or something.
Apparently in Dogma, he was off his box most of the time and stuff, and he had to be sort of, you know, reined in.
Basically, Kevin had to just give him a talking to, and essentially, as I understand it, James Sandstrop back was a promise that Kevin Smith made to Jason Mewes. You get yourself straight, get yourself sorted out, and I will make another Jay and Silent Bob film. Yeah. And basically, as well, like Kevin Smith's own kind of heart attack, he just said, right, we're going to do this. Jason Mewes got himself straight and said, right, okay, we're making this film now. So, I mean, on one hand, yeah, it's like really, you know, a fantastic gesture by Kevin Smith to do what he did and deliver on the promise. But on the other hand, it wasn't the best film, maybe. I mean, for me personally, Dogma was like the best Kevin Smith film.
Yes.
Just like, it was a really tight story.
Don't get me wrong, Dogma is really good, but and Joe, I'm surprised I'm going to say this. I actually agree with Matt. I think Mallrats is the best.
For me, Mallrats is just Kevin Smith, the epitome of Kevin Smith. I saw that face. Trust me, no one's more shocked than I am that I agree with Matt Geary. But it's definitely the best Kevin Smith film. It is just a classic. Yeah. And come on, just even if just you take the scene with Stan Lee, that is just gold. Yeah, that's amazing. So good.
For me, it's a toss-up between Mallrats and Chasing Amy.
Oh, Chasing Amy, yeah. It is, yeah.
But, yeah. I mean, the new Kevin Smith film, it was kind of fun to see where all the characters from all these films were in, you know, 20 years later or whatever. And, you know, you got to see the characters from Chasing Amy weren't together, but they decided to raise a kid together. And you know, so there was some closure, some kind of fan service closure there. But the actual film itself, it was just like, it felt, for a director who has done films like Chasing Amy and Mallrats and stuff, it felt cobbled together.
Yeah.
So
there is a sequel to Mallrats happening as well. I know that he has written.
But there's Clerks 3 as well. He's going on about his Clerks 3 script at the minute.
I don't know about Clerks 3. I'm not too sure you need a third Clerks.
But wasn't Mallrats meant to be a series? Wasn't meant to be a series for the Mallrats? And then
I think they were going to do something of a series, but then I think they decided that a film was obviously better, because I think Mallrats was originally envisioned as like it's like a TV spin-off. I think it was going to be sort of like just taking some of the characters. It was going to be its own little thing. But do you know what? If the second Mallrats film is really good and they take it a bit more in a straight direction, they actually go, right, this is not a cameo fest. This is something that we're going to actually do story driven. We're actually going to, you know, really focus on the characters, bring back the elements that probably have been missing from like more recent Kevin Smith films. And I reckon Mallrats Mallrats 2 or whatever he's going to call it, I reckon it could be a fantastic movie. But,
I just hope he doesn't overdo it, because it's like you've got these films, and for me, like, you know, like Mallrats and stuff is my teenage year. Those films growing up were integral to my teenage. Like, I would just quote Mallrats, when I was a teenager. It was just my film. That was like, it was my personal film. And I'm worried that if they start carrying on like the new reboot, and he starts killing them because he wants to sort of just get as many out before he, pops his clogs or whatever, that it might sort of taint some of the older ones.
I don't know. I think with Jay and Silent Bob reboot, I think that was his point of saying, well, look, if I am going to make only one more film, I want to just do basically an absolute bonkers movie. I think because he's done that now, he's like, right, actually, well, maybe I want to make something that's a little bit more grounded, a little bit more like sustainable. And I think that's where Mallrats, and potentially if he does actually make Clerks 3, I reckon that's when them two are going to really make a big effect. And I reckon, I don't know, it sounds bad. I'm not too interested in a Clerks 3 because I think Clerks 2 was good, but I don't think it really needed to have expanse on that side of it. But Mallrats, I always thought would work with a sequel. So
I think the other thing is all his recent films have been the last film in that series he will ever make. So, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was the last one, and then Clerks 2 was the last one, and then Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
There's even an episode of Big Bang Theory when he's on it. Penny's apparently auditioning for one of his film roles. He goes, "Hey, I've got this really great film. It's something completely new, something I've never done before. It's called Clerks 3." It's like, yeah, he knows how to take the mick out of himself. That's one thing you can never take away from him.
Yeah, he's always been like that, but I think he's quite insecure. I think, he kind of reminds me of our own Mike Orvis slightly. There's definitely a sort of lots of easy to take the piss out of himself, but there's definitely an insecurity in there. That maybe he's not as popular as he should be.
You don't take anything away from my Michael. He's a lovely fella.
Oh, yes. I'm going to go down. I'm going to open up this can of worms simply because we've asked every single person who's been on this podcast since. What are your views on the new Star Wars films?
Well.
First of all, actually, what's your view on did you like Rogue One?
No.
Oh no! No! Oh man, I love that.
I watched it in the cinema and I quite enjoyed it, but I have absolutely no desire to watch it again. The characters, I really didn't kind of, I've seen a lot of people making. I've seen a lot of people making good arguments why it's the best, but for me, it was the Magnificent Seven again, and it kind of, I didn't care about any of the characters.
You make me sad, Gareth. You make me very sad.
And this is probably going to get me death threats, but I much preferred Solo.
Solo was good. Completely underrated. Completely underrated.
Me, Solo was what the original trilogy of Star Wars was, in that it was fun.
Yeah.
It wasn't kind of earnest and kind of trying to. It was a fun romp, and that's what Star Wars is to me. Is a fun romp. And I think the trouble with a lot of franchises is, I see this in Doctor Who as well, is that we enjoy them as kids as fun romps, but then as we mature, we expect the franchise to mature and tell more and more grown-up stories. But that's not what the franchise was. The franchise was a fun film that kids and adults could enjoy. And we want, now we're older and our tastes have changed, we want darker, grittier, more adult stories. But that's kind of losing what we loved about the original. And that's why I enjoyed Solo, because it was just, it was daft, but it was fun. I could just kind of put my brain into neutral and watch it, and there's Han and there's Chewie and there's Lando and this is how he got the Millennium Falcon. That's what the Kessel Run is. It was yay, and so for what it was, I just enjoyed it the same way as I enjoyed Episode 4: A New Hope. It was a fun romp, and I think it was really enjoyable. And I think if all the films had been released in a different order and the original trilogy was like the third trilogy, people would be going, well, the dialogue's not so good. The story's just crazy. They just go into the Death Star and come out again. And it's like, what's that about? Darth Vader is what? So,
Joe,
yeah, I didn't particularly like the prequels. I thought they were way too po-faced, and everything interesting in them happened off screen. Like the whole, Dooku taking Anakin under his wing and everything was hinted at, and that would have been, that's what the movie should have been about. It was Anakin, instead of like all the flipping Senate meetings and trading, it should have been like the corruption of Anakin much more front and center, rather than just being whoa surprise at the end. So yeah, and the whole love story with Padme, and I actually didn't give a crap about any of that. So it was, I kind of wanted it to be more fun and more kind of concentrating on Anakin's deterioration. And so, but these third trilogy, I liked the first one, when I sat down in the cinema to watch it, and I think I actually started crying when the door went up and there was Leia.
Yeah.
And I just like burst into tears and Leia's theme. And I was going, oh, and the kids were going, oh, Dad.
Your dad is dying.
But then they killed off Han Solo, and I kind of basically lost interest. So, and it was like, oh, it's a new big Death Star. We have to go in and fly around it a lot and shoot the secret weakness chamber again. You think they would have learned to stop including that?
Who was the architect on this thing?
Yeah, it's like, that was one of the good points about Rogue One. They did give a reason why the architect had actually consciously included a secret weakness, because he was working against his will, but doesn't explain like. But then the other ones, I thought what was the middle one called?
Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi. I thought that was gorgeously shot. There are some scenes like when Luke is facing all the AT-AT walkers.
Yeah.
With the sun behind them, and he's just standing. Amazing shot, and that whole film is full of amazingly beautiful shots. But
thank you. I feel the same
plot
way.
was just like, oh, you can do that. And then the third one was just, I enjoyed sitting in a cinema. I enjoyed it, but coming out of the cinema afterwards, I thought, because they had 3 films to establish the new characters, and the original characters were established in 3 films, and we fell in love with them. But they spent, after the 3 films, I didn't feel the new characters had that establishment, and hadn't kind of found a way to get in. And what the fuck is that about riding horses across Star Destroyer?
Yeah, that was pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. So to answer your question, I enjoyed them, but personally, in my own headcanon, there is only the original trilogy.
How about The Mandalorian? How have you found The Mandalorian?
I've not watched it yet. I don't have.
Oh, it's really good. Really. If you ever get a chance,
I've heard good things.
Based on your opinions of like the recent films, I think you'll really dig The Mandalorian.
Yeah. It's really good parts. Yeah.
It sounds like my cup of tea.
Yeah, well, I think it will be 100% your cup of tea. It's really good.
Both the cinematography and the story. Shifting to a different one, just because it's kind of in the news at the moment on the geek side of things. Did you ever watch Babylon 5 back in the 90s?
I did, yeah.
Because obviously they've done a new transfer on HBO Max.
Yeah.
This last week. How did you feel about that? Did you enjoy it?
What I loved about Babylon 5, because I was in the process of not watching DS9 at the time, and I tried a few times. And I think I watched an episode of DS9 and an episode of Babylon 5 and got them muddled up.
Oh,
So I was watching it and going, well, where are all the characters that were on last week? But what I really enjoyed about Babylon 5, because I kind of really started to get into it midway through the first season, was the arc. And there was like forward flashes and flashbacks and prophecies, and it was like it was so rare in those days because I was used to like TNG, which had the magic reset button at the end of every week. You know, oh, there's a monster, everything is changed. Oh, we've reversed the polarity, everything's fine. And there was very little character development because everyone was the same at the beginning of every episode. So this was kind of, I could see it was going somewhere. So I stuck with it through all the seasons and got really excited about it. But there was some bloody awful episodes along the way.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I was more interested in the arc than the individual episodes.
I think if you kind of concentrate on like the primary arc episodes, it's a much tighter story.
It was the same with the X-Files. There was kind of an arc there, but if it was an episode where that wasn't anything to do with the arc, I got a bit bored. So, you know, and there were episodes where in Babylon 5 where the Doctor goes off on a journey of self-discovery, and I was like, oh, for fuck's sake.
It's like The Walking Dead. I had zero interest in like half of the season because it's just like, this is no interest. This is not doing what I need it to do. At the start, the middle, and the end is generally what I need. Stick those 3 episodes together, and I'm done. I don't need the rest of it.
It was like a novel where they say when you're writing a novel, jettison any scene that doesn't like move the plot forward.
Yeah.
And so there was a plot, but there were lots of episodes that didn't move the plot forward.
Well, I think at the time, then, I mean, like, I think in many ways Babylon 5 redefined our approach to television and like what is capable in that medium. I mean, before Babylon 5, we didn't really have like a event series which had a beginning, a middle, and end.
Everything was designed for syndication, wasn't it? Especially in America.
Yeah.
That it would just get blobbed wherever by whichever network needed to blob it in at whichever time. And
I think in many ways as well, there will be J. Michael Straczynski was beholden to what had all gone before. So namely, a season of a TV show would have 20 episodes. No matter whether the story could be told in 15 episodes, 25 episodes, or 10 episodes. No, it's a 20-episode season. You've got that. You will write your story in 20 episodes. And there would be filler.
At the time, it was huge. I remember, I think season 3, before any of the big space battles, but there was one where 2 Earth destroyers come to take
Severed Dreams, I think. Called.
Yeah, something like that. And there's one point where one Earth destroyer on fire rams another one.
The Churchill and the Agamemnon.
And I went down the pub after watching it, and people down the pub were talking about it. Like, did you see Babylon 5? Fucking hell! But then there was the
Delenn entry. You know, there's only one captain, one Earth captain that ever defeated the Minbari. He's behind me.
Yeah,
so that's come up a lot the last couple of weeks after she passed away last week.
Oh, that was so sad. I was completely in love with Delenn for a long time. She was an amazing character, but as I say, there were quite a few. And season 5, I know it wasn't anyone's fault, but they had to wrap up early because they thought they were going to. But all kind of stuff with the psychics and
a bunch of goths in the down below. But yeah, basically what happened with season 5 was that initially Straczynski was told, "Oh, you know, you thought you had 5 seasons. Well, we've only got 4 now. So write your story."
Season 4 was like
incredibly condensed, and then they turned around about towards the end of season 4 said, "Well, you're doing so well, we thought you'd give you that season back." And just went, "Oh, I've just told my story," and then it's basically come up with like a season of epilogue.
Yeah, I was also a bit disappointed that they, like, for 4 seasons, we were building up towards this Shadow Vorlon confrontation. And he won it by just telling them to fuck off. And they went, "Oh, all right then."
I liked how he got their attention, though. To be fair, but you can like, right, let's get the attention. Boom.
You know what? I've never seen Babylon 5. It's been one of those things. ever. The only thing when somebody says Babylon 5 to me, all I think of is Spaced. Is when he's going to quit from the comic book shop. He says Babylon 5's a big pile of shit, and he says get out.
Gary, I've lost all respect for you now.
I'm sorry. I know you can take my geek cards off me, but yeah,
I'm not taking it off you. I'm shoving it somewhere.
Sorry,
but I think at the end of the day, if it wasn't for Babylon 5, we wouldn't have had the Battlestar Galactica reboot.
Yeah,
and that really took that kind of arc and ran with it. And
well, the thing with the Battlestar Galactica reboot, as I understand it, they did not have like a series Bible. They just were completely. It's very much like a jazz approach to writing. They just did what they fancied.
Battlestar Galactica just really upset me because it was so good for 3 series and it just went downhill so rapidly. And the final series is just dog shit. It's so bad. It's like it upset me reading it. I remember watching it and I was just like, "What the fuck are you doing, man? What is this? Is this like Earth 2?" It's like,
But I think this is the problem with a show that hasn't got
a
beginning, middle, and end structured. And there's some shows that work perfectly because they know where they were going to start, they knew where they were going to end, and to get to that course, that it works perfectly. But there are shows. Battlestar Galactica, I think, was one of the best examples. I think they probably got told, right, season 4 is going to be your last one. They probably thought, oh shit, we probably could have done another 2, maybe 3 more. And they're like, right, okay, yeah, you've got to now wrap it up. You've got to now do something. Can we do something? No. We might give you a spin-off or something like that, but, wrap this story up. And I think that's kind of where Game of Thrones went a bit wrong as well, because where they had so much material to work from, but then they got to a point, it's like, well, hang on, we've now got to try and make an end to this. We don't know what.
Yeah,
the end
it was
is.
rushed, well too rushed for such a complicated story. They just went, there's end.
The worst thing was that they cut the episode count. Why did they do that? The last 2 seasons should have still been 10 episodes. It could have had more time to pace out. They could have really expanded on these characters. They could have really gave a satisfying conclusion. Yeah, obviously money. But
people stopped watching as much.
Yeah.
That was the thing. They cut the money because people weren't watching as much and they weren't willing to spend as much. And the point at which they should have been spending more money on the big stuff, they got told, work with it.
Yeah, but I think it's just with Game of Thrones, I envisaged it when I heard it was becoming a series and stuff. I was just like, wow, if they do this properly, and this is going to be the talk of the internet for the rest of time if they do it properly. And it's sort of the talk of the internet for the worst sort of reasons, because it's like it was a bit of a damp squib at the end, and it's like I don't really, when I think about it, I don't really have any sort of kind of for something I loved, and the books I love, and I just want them to finish them at the minute. But it's like I can't sort of think back at Game of Thrones and think, yeah, that was good. It's just like, because the last sort of 2 series and a half, I guess, have sort of tainted it slightly for me, because I was just like, it just wasn't what I wanted it to be. Especially reading the books and stuff, I'm just like, yeah, that left a bad taste in my mouth.
The first 2 or 3 seasons though were so good.
Yeah,
absolutely. When they were watching them, and it was such a slow burn. I think that's why the ending is such a
they lost their pacing. They'd set a pace, and they lost that, and I think that's probably where it came unraveled. Was instead of them moving it forward in a way that you were used to, suddenly you were going quick, slow, quick, fuck, what? Who knows?
Yeah. Also, there was an entire season about basically Brianna and Jamie walking from the north to King's Landing. It took them an entire year basically. And then in the last season, they're surrounded by zombies, so it's great. Quick, run and get help. And he manages to run all the way to the other end of the continent and summon some dragons that pop up 10 minutes later.
Yeah, and apparently the continent's meant to be absolutely huge, as well.
So they were just like, oh, if we take a boat, we can nip up there in a day, and it was like.
Yeah, they just it annoyed me. I didn't mind Danny turning bad. I thought that in a way that sort of was good. It's just the way they did it, and it was and Jon Snow just turned into a fucking You know, I just didn't like him, and you know, like even like Grey Worm and things, where he's just sort of like, yeah, so you know, you killed the Khaleesi, and he just sort of left. And all kinds of crazy shit, and I was just like, the only sort of really good. I liked the Clegane Bowl. I liked when the Hound and the Mountain fought each other. You know, ridiculous. I'm annoyed about the battle for Winterfell. You know, it didn't sort of, you know, It had a lot of one. It was too dark, and two, it had a lot of promise, but it just didn't.
We'd been building up to that battle though. All the seasons were building towards that battle, and then it was just like, that was it.
And because of, like, historically as well, I was just thinking, I was like, why are you putting your men out here? Why are you doing this? And I was just like, it's so ridiculous. You just literally charged cavalry into an unknown position, and you're wondering why they've been obliterated. It just makes no sense. And I was just like,
Matt, your military history degree is showing.
Yeah, well, that actually leads on to another question. When you're watching series, and you've read the books, are you a sort of a guy who can sort of part yourself from the books, or are you like, that wasn't like that in the book, that was like this in the book?
Yeah, this is why I said earlier that I'm reading the Expanse books before I watch the series. Because
oh god, yeah.
It will, you know, I've got my mental pictures of the crew, and they have been a bit tainted by, you know, the trailers for the Expanse and stuff that I've seen. But I kind of want to finish the books, because also I think if I start watching the series and they diverge slightly from the books, I'm going to be really confused when I read the last book, because bits of continuity will be slightly different. So
you're going to be all torn up. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not a fantasy reader, but I gave Game of Thrones a go after watching the series and didn't really get on with it, because I kind of had the TV show in my head, so it kind of ruined the books for me. That you know, I've got to read like 50 million pages just to get to like this part in the story, do I? And I just want to get on with it. So
I had to sit there for, like, I read because they were filming it basically in my village back in Northern Ireland. They filmed a lot of it in sort of like where we used to play as kids, and down the road you can see the wall and stuff. So I was like, right, I'm going to read all of these books, because, you know, I'm a massive fantasy guy, and, you know, they're filming in my home village, so I need to sort of get on this. I read them all in 2 weeks when I was on holiday in Egypt, and literally, like, back to back, just hammered them every day. Didn't do anything other than read these books. And I had to sit for like 5 years before the Red Wedding came up, and I was like, people don't know what's just about to happen to these people. And I was just like, oh no. And it was getting me upset, you know, the Jon Snow thing. I was like, oh my god, this is another big thing. Everybody loves Jon Snow, and he's gonna die, and this, and yeah. It's just annoying that he hasn't finished now, because it's like, the only good thing about him not finishing and me not liking the end to the series is that when he does hopefully finish the books, it will be completely different than what the series is, and I can sort of I can have my dark ending that I want. I want to have this sort of like, oh my god, did they just do that sort of ending? Because that's what he's meant. That's what his stuff is. It's meant to be why people you love don't last long, and I like that. As much as it upsets me, I like it. You know.
I mean, he did say that he had told the producers like several bits of information about how each character, where they end up and what happens. And I'm thinking he sat at home now crossing a lot of stuff out.
Yeah.
And going, oh, shit, they really hated that.
Yeah, big time.
The one bit he did talk about, the one bit he did say was his that they did use in the show was the bit with Hodor, the whole revelation about how he came to be. He said that was part of book 6. Whether or not that's still going to be part of it, who knows?
Apparently, somebody figured that out. There was a story about him.
2011, something like that. Yeah, there was something.
Something about an elevator, and it was something to do with him holding the door in an elevator and stuff, and can't remember the exact story behind it and stuff, but somebody said that, like Hodor hold the door, and George R. Martin turns to the guy and says, well, you're closer than you think, sort of thing. So.
Good job it wasn't mine a door. And got a job on the London Underground.
Oh, dear.
I'm the gap. Me gap.
Oh, dear. Looking at the comments on YouTube, I saw that we've got this echo thing going on, Matt.
Yeah.
But the Pale Lady said Babylon 5, the whole thing was worth it just for Jakar. And I think it does point out that, again, a good plot, you still need to have the right actors, and Babylon 5 had a real lucky job there.
Yeah.
Obviously, you said you fell in love with Delenn. Would you say that she was your favourite character and performance from the whole series?
She was the amazingly empathic character, which I thought was I'd not really seen in sci-fi before. She really cared about Sheridan and really cared about people and cared about suffering, but at the same time she could be hard as nails when she wanted to be. And she wasn't a wilting love interest. She had her own shit going on and her own stuff, which I really liked. Jakar, bless him, he started out as like the moustache twirling villain, and I like the fact he turned in his complete turnaround. And
you do not thump the Book of Jaquan.
Yes, and Londo, who started out as like the comedy relief and turned into a villain. I love the fact, and bless both those actors, dressed up so stupidly they played every line like it was Shakespeare.
Oh God, yeah.
So they, in lesser actors' hands, those two characters would have been dreadful, but those two guys really.
The assistants were brilliant as well. I always love how Veer grew.
Yes.
The dolls, and then there was the thing in the market. Do you remember where they took the mickey out of him because he was just the assistant, and he walks into the meeting, takes the sword off the wall, so just need to borrow this for a second. All the way back to the infamous thing where Morden asks him what he wants. Do you remember that one? And he just,
I remember this talk by J. Mark Straczynski, and he said the purpose of Delenn and Jakar was that their characters to be complete opposites by the end. Jakar was to be a warrior that became a priest, whilst Delenn was to be a priest that became a warrior. And if you look at every principal character, they all go through a fundamental change in the process of that story. Even just like the smaller characters such as Zach Allen, or who becomes the security chief, or Patricia Tallman as Lita Alexander, who goes from a minor telepath to being a Volon
force
weapon.
of nature.
But yeah, I mean, I still can't look at that guy without thinking of Kaniki in Greece.
Yeah.
Oh dear. But, I must admit, I still can't watch Sleeping in Light without crying at the end.
Yeah, it's a very powerful episode, that one.
Was that the final one?
Very final one.
Yeah, I kind of when I watched it, I kind of decided in my own head that you skip from the end of season 4 to Sleeping in Light, and you just miss everything else out.
Which is how they shot it, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly how they shot it. They shot Sleeping in Light at the end of season 4. Then when they realised that season 5 was going ahead, right? Okay, we put this in lock and shifted to the end of season 5, and
hence it's the only episode of season 5 that had Susan Ivana on it because of that little issue with Claudia Christian.
Yeah.
So basically, when I do watch it, I watch 4 seasons and skip to the end of season 5.
Yeah, that's fair.
Pretty much, yeah.
Although there is a very good episode in season 5 which was written by Neil Gaiman.
That's a good point. Yeah, maybe a small exception.
But
and if anyone offers to let you watch Legend of the Rangers, then they're not your friend, and you're to beat them until they stop talking.
Myself and Mark are massive Warhammer 40k fans. Have you ever delved into the Black Library at all?
Sorry, I was just having a sneeze there. I went for a walk in a snowstorm today, and that may have been a tactical error.
oh dear.
Okay.
Yes, I in fact I've been approached to write for them.
Oh, brilliant!
But not come up with anything at the moment. But but they did ask me at one point. Yeah, I used to play Warhammer as a kid when I was in the sixth form at school doing our A levels. Wednesday afternoon was like sports afternoon at school, so people go off and play football or cricket. And me and my mates played Warhammer 40k role playing. Much to the chagrin of many of our teachers, who would come in and say, "Don't you want to go outside?" And it's like, no. But we had sort of characters, and we played for a couple of years, and the guy who was DMing us would use kind of Call of Cthulhu adventures and paranoia adventures and everything, and weave them all into these Warhammer characters that we had. I had a Space Marine cadet who was rather fond of his multi-melter. We had orcs and halfling. I think it ended up that we went through this weird dimensional time rift and ended up in 1980s Bristol. The halflings got jobs shepherding trolleys at Sainsbury's, and the Eldar crashed the solstice celebrations at Stonehenge and got arrested, and the Marines had to bust them out of Salisbury Police Station. It was quite splendid.
That being said, like old school 40k was pretty bonkers anyway. Like, so you could go that way. So
it's an awful lot more formalized these days, isn't it?
But would you find, because obviously everything you write's your own. With Black Library, you would have to adhere to specific sort of kind of markers and things. Do you think that would be hard?
I kind of, the things I write tend to be quite fun and hopeful, and those are two words you cannot apply to the Black Library.
No.
Much as I love it, and much as I kind of, I've enjoyed the stuff Danny Ware has written. It's been fantastic, and her Sisters of Mercy kind of novellas and stuff. I don't want to say I never would, just in case Black Library are listening and going, "That bastard," and cross me off, because their books do sell really, really, really well. But at the moment, I kind of might, talking to my agent about it, and he's very much like, "Gareth, you have a brand that is like," which is a horrible word, but your readers come to you for fun and hope and stuff. And if you wrote a Warhammer, that wouldn't be a Gareth Powell novel, if you see what I mean, because you wouldn't be able to put a lot of what you love about writing into it. So from that point of view, and after the whole Donald Trump thing, my kind of patience for fascism has very much diminished. So even like ironic fascism, it's just like, oh, fuck's sake. So maybe I could write something about the Eldar or something.
Orcs, they're all pretty ridiculous. You could have some. They're a bit more sort of open to things. So
yeah, I think I skew more towards an Eldar than an Orc, just generally.
Maybe it's how.
After Brexit, I think.
Stuff.
Yeah, so maybe I could write something about the Eldar kind of floating around the universe, being floaty and elf-like, and then shooting the shit out of a lot of stuff. But maybe one day. I wouldn't rule it out. But
I have to say, I am a big fan of shit happening in books. So when my favorite characters get killed off, as much as it upsets me, I kind of like it in a weird dark way. That's why I like sort of kind of darker things, because it's something that sort of hits me in the feels, and that makes me sort of enjoy the book, because I like unexpected things happening. So that's why I sort of have an affinity towards George R.R. Martin, and obviously the Black Library stuff, because a lot of shit just goes down and you're just like, okay, wasn't expecting that.
I mean, Embers of War is sometimes described as a military science fiction, but it's kind of the opposite. So it's kind of like the antithesis of Warhammer, in that A, the war is over, and B, these characters are recovering from it. They haven't just shrugged it off and gone on to like mow down a million other chaos demons. They've kind of they've been through the war and they're a bit fucked up by it, and they've
they
they've
haven't
suffered.
been rounded up and shot.
Yeah,
That's the other thing that happens, of course.
exactly. And I it's the antithesis of a future where there is nothing but warfare and whatever. I mean, if I lived in the Warhammer thing, I'd do fuck the Emperor.
Fuck the Emperor.
Emperor, the stupid bastard. Look where he's got us. So it would be, I would be, making peace with the Eldar and exterminating the Orcs and all that kind of lot. So, I would write a hopeful book set in the Warhammer universe, which I think would not go down well with people who like.
I don't know. I think it's because it'd be so it would be so different, and it might actually work.
Yeah, a peace conference.
Yeah, why not? There's all kinds of things going on. Who knows? Why? Give it a whirl, see what happens.
A peace conference is the you've got a gene stealer there. Going, no, wait your turn.
Oh, yeah.
Then the delegates, not the snack bar. God damn it!
Yeah. So,
it could be a changeling who's sort of trying to ruin a peace conference within sort of between. Who knows? It could be smaller. There's all kinds of races that could be in, but yeah. Who knows? I would honestly like to see something. Your sort of kind of take on it would be an interesting take, because it would be something different.
It'd be a fresher breath out.
Yeah, exactly. And I think sometimes that's a good thing to have, something that is completely apart.
A peace conference where somebody's murdered one of the delegates and they all have to work together to figure out who that would be.
Well, you've got you do have a lot. Some of the books where you literally have these. They will fight with each other because it's for the greater good of what needs to be done. So I don't see why not. It would be an interesting read.
When I think about it, a quick leap round. George R.R. Martin, obviously everyone knows him for Game of Thrones. Have you ever read any of his other work, like the Wild Cards books or Tough Voyaging?
I've dipped into the Wild Cards and really enjoyed it. A couple of my friends have written for it, and I've always thought it looked like a cracking wheeze. So it would, I quite enjoy that. But I've not really read much of his other stuff.
I mean, Tough Voyaging you might actually quite like. It's kind of like a series of short stories all tied together, and it is kind of in that sort of vein of what you try to read. It's in the aftermath of things getting screwed up, with some very pointed stories. And moral lessons by virtue of civil discourse and genetic engineering.
I've been recommended some of his sci-fi as well, which I have a to read list that is
huge. Yeah, me too.
You can see it from space.
I've just added your books to mine as well, so I've got...
Yeah. I have a wish list of books that's a private one, and every time I add something to it, Amazon says, "Are you sure you want to do that? Please stop."
I've got Audible now, so I try to sort of get mine stuff so when I'm painting or when I'm doing something random, I can have these in the background. But even that's huge now.
I've had to stop buying books because I'm at the point where publishers are sending me books in the hope of a blurb quote, and it's all I can do to keep up with books written by friends, so it's let alone anyone else, and it's
right. Been on for about 2 hours, been extremely enjoyable. I think we're gonna have to end it there though, getting quite late. But is there anything you need? Is there anything you want to pimp now? Is there any websites or anything you want to sort of kind of talk about before we go?
My OnlyFans account. No.
A side of Gareth Powell we've never ever seen.
That came out of left field. That's amazing.
Oh god.
As I say, that book.
No wonder you're able to fund this TV show now, right?
Oh my god. Oh man.
The Peter Hamilton and I wrote that book, and that's coming out. Light Chaser, that's coming out from Tor.com in August. In April, Solaris are releasing a special 10th anniversary edition of my novel, The Recollection, with a new introduction by me and a really nice new cover. And then I think the next book from Titan is due February next year, if I can pull my finger out and get these edits done.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much. Really
Definitely.
interesting. Really enjoyed the conversation. Enjoy 2021 as best you can, and I hope the TV series goes really well. I hope it gets on Netflix. That'll be awesome. So good. But yes, thank you very much. For me tonight, I've been Matt Geary. With me has been Mark Canty.
Evening all, and thank you very much for coming on.
Peter Ray Allison.
Stay safe, everyone, and look out for each other.
Jonjo Cosgrove.
Take care, all. See you soon.
And our special guest, Gareth Powell.
No one told me I needed a catchapphrase.
Night
Yours need a
all.
catchphrase.